We've only seen a few players in the history of the NFL who have sat out. None of them have retired over a contract. And I know the work conditions in Pittsburgh, the franchise tag, Jenna, is a smooth $14 million that he happens to be playing under now. Now, I do understand. They do want the security of a long-term contract. Most of the superstars, they do deserve it. But let's not get crazy here. He's not going to retire. He might sit out the first few games of the season, but there's nowhere else in this world that he can make that kind of money. So he will be playing in the National Football League somewhere. He might sit out training camp and all those things. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if he wasn't with the Steelers, because the amount of money they're paying Ben and AB, it's hard to have that third guy making that kind of money.
So, CC, so if people don't know, franchise tag this year, your first time tagged, you get the average pay of the top 5 guys at your position. So this year for a running back, he made about $12.5 million. If they tag him again, they have to add 20% to it. So it'd be right about $14 million. So if he's tagged in back-to-back years,
almost $27 million over 2 years.
Right.
I'm going to quit.
Well, here's the thing. I don't think he's going to quit either. And he mentioned that if I sat out the year, I'd probably end up retiring. To CeCe's point, this was a guy that's not like he was the #1 overall pick of the draft. His rookie contract didn't pay him enormously by NFL standards. This next contract would equal almost the entirety, just the franchise tag, would equal almost the entirety of what he had made in his whole career leading up to this next 1-year deal. I don't blame him for his frustration, though. Because running backs have such a short shelf life. And the Steelers, guess how they used him this year, Jenna? Like he wasn't part of their long-term plans. He had 406 touches. It's the 3rd most touches of anyone in the NFL in the last 11 seasons. Like, they know that when you use a running back like this, it potentially takes a year or 2 off the back end of their career. They don't have to.
So you think Pittsburgh intentionally put all these carries on him so he wouldn't be part of their future?
No.
Oh.
I think that if he had signed this offseason a long-term deal, they would have been more cautious with him. I think you're more cautious with someone you are tied to long-term than someone who you know might be playing somewhere else next year.
So what is Dallas doing with Zeke? They're putting all those carries on him?
Well, Zeke, his rookie year, first of all, it's his first year. This year, he didn't have a ton of carries.
Now, I haven't heard of a coach, I haven't heard of a system in my over 30 years in the NFL that they were trying to take carries away from a guy because potentially that would extend his career, or they put all the carries on him because they didn't care about it. To me, it's about winning.
I have heard of that system. I experienced it firsthand.
Tell me.
The Chiefs with Jamal Charles in year 4 for him. People were furious. He was averaging, he was 100th of a yard away from setting the all-time record in yards per carry. People were furious why he wasn't getting more carries. And the coaching staff and GM at the time repeatedly said, we want Jamal here for a long time. We are worried about him long term. We don't want to put too much wear and tear on him. So
now, wasn't Jamal Charles a little undersized for a running back? Like, wasn't he?
He wasn't as big as Le'Veon Bell.
All right, well, let's stick to Bell. No one thinks it's odd that he's saying this now? The weekend before he's going to...
We've heard this before, Jenna. This is not new news.
But on the Friday before they're going to play a playoff game, you want to talk about whether you're going to get tagged or not next year? Whether you're going to play or not? I'm going to sit. He's already thinking about that?
It's not going to affect him in the game.
I'm sure it isn't. But isn't this just one more thing in the Steelers folder of ridiculous comments to make before you're playing a playoff game?
He came out shortly thereafter and was like, I'm just focused on the game. But he clearly, this is in his mind. I think one of the reasons this might be front of his mind is CC. Everyone make the same during the playoffs?
Yes.
Is it anything close to what your season check is?
No, if you're an established player.
Right.
No, it's not.
So Le'Veon Bell during the regular season.
But the Super Bowl ring is worth more than the playoff stipends.
Of course. I'm not disputing that. But Le'Veon Bell's during the regular season.
Tom Brady's making less, too.
Wait.
Agreed. But Tom Brady's, A, already made his money, and B, on a long-term deal. Like, I don't blame a player that has, if Le'Veon Bell suffers a devastating injury in this playoff game, he has not a single dollar guaranteed to him from the NFL moving forward, and he wanted a long-term deal this offseason.
So yesterday seemed like a good day to say it because that seemed like when it was going to happen. Regardless, my question to you, do you think the Steelers are going to franchise tag him again?
They're going to either franchise him or let him go.
They used him so much this year.
It's not because of that.
No, hold on, CeCe. Wait, just real quick. You say it's not because of that.
Because we can't prove that.
No, Okay, but Cece, it makes total, just logical sense that one of the reasons you wouldn't want to give Le'Veon Bell, if they were to sign him to a long-term deal, they wouldn't have to pay him $14 million a year.
It's money, Nick. The quarterback's making a lot of money, all right?
Yeah.
All right? They got defensive players that are coming up for their second contract that they have to appropriate resources to.
But Cece, but you just said, man, that they might franchise him, right?
That's for protection, absolutely.
Right, so they would have the money for next year at $14 million. The reason they wouldn't feel comfortable, I believe, giving him a long-term deal is because of the position and because they know the wear and tear for running backs as they get older.
And also, Nick, isn't he one positive test away from being suspended?
For a year,
Oh,
yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So don't that have something to do with...
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
100%.
So we should have brought that up.
Well, I'm glad you did.
All right.
Well, then maybe it'll be Leonard Fournette. And
He destroyed them in Week 5.
He did destroy them in Week 5. Then something interesting happened in
Not necessarily destroyed them. If you take away the one big run he had, because Pittsburgh, to me, looked misaligned on that one play, Pittsburgh played him a fairly decent game if you take that one run away.
He had the 90-yard run, which
Yes.
which ended the game essentially. But
Yes.
but here's the thing: through 6 weeks, Leonard Fournette was healthy. Then he had an ankle injury. Show America what he looked like through 6 weeks, and then after that, through 6 weeks of the season, 6 games, almost 100 yards per game, 12 runs of 10+ yards, 6 touchdowns, 4.6 per carry. Over the last 8 games, since he came back from that injury, those yards per carry are down to 3.2.
Yep.
League average is 3.6. So since he's been back from that ankle injury, and since the weather's gotten colder, and since maybe he's hit that rookie wall, he's been an average running back, actually a slightly below average running back. And he's going to be the guy who has to have a huge game for their offense to have any chance of going, unless you believe in Blake Bortles. So that is a point of concern. I think people look at Leonard Fournette's whole year, they're like, oh, guy had 9 touchdowns, 1,000 yards as a rookie. They don't realize so much of that was done over the first 6 weeks of the year before he got hurt.
And most of that was done without a marquee 1 or 2 wide receiver. So he did have a great year. When you look at that in the context of they don't have explosive, skilled players, he had a tremendous year. Also, the league looked at the first part of the film, and I'm sure they adjusted for the last 6 games.
Right. Now, look, the Steelers, you look back on that game, and, I mean, the Steelers have gotten obviously much better. Ben's not going to throw 5 interceptions, but the Jaguars' defense also got better. I think this will be a very competitive game. What's the spread now?
7.5. Is
that higher than you thought it would be?
It's right. This is one that was about right in line with where I thought it'd be. I think it would. The Jags are just hoping it's a one-score game in the fourth quarter and that they can steal it.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.